for those of you watching, this segment, this is the beginning of a new segment, and I just finished talking Bible chat with Mom. We're moving on to a new topic, Mom. I want to talk about, let's get this out of the way. Let's do a global Chernobyl segment.
Oh, okay.
All right. This one is going to be very, very controversial already because I already know the name of this one. And I'll just tell you the name of this segment and get your reaction, and then we'll see where it goes. All right. This segment is going to be called USA or China. Pick one.
Are you asking me to pick one?
Well, that's the name of this segment. So why don't you pick one, Mom?
That's not even a choice.
Oh, really?
Not making a choice is a choice.
If you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. Ooh, that's a good point. You know, that's a lyric from a rock and roll song.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, it's a band called Rush. Embarrassingly, I don't remember which song it's from, but it's, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice.
Yeah.
So, well, if it's a no-brainer, which one did you pick, Mom?
Well, at this moment in time, it has to be the USA, right?
Right. Now...
You're asking me to choose between good and evil.
You're calling China evil?
I'm calling the Chinese Communist Party very evil.
Bingo, bingo. Okay, so because of the name of this segment, some of you are watching, some of you are still watching, some of you are like, what? This xenophobic, whatever, right? Pick one. How can you pick one? Everybody, we're all human, blah, blah, blah. It's not about being human. It's not about ethnicity. It's about ideology. When I say USA or China, pick one, I'm not talking about American or Chinese. I didn't say American or Chinese. I said USA, the concept of the USA, or the concept of communist totalitarian dictatorships, right? So it's our form of government versus their form of government. And the greatest victims and the greatest heroes of the global pandemic that all of us are affected by, the greatest heroes and the greatest victims are the Chinese people in China.
Absolutely.
The greatest heroes are the scientists, the doctors, the researchers, those journalists on the ground who are essentially locked up right now, and some of them dead right now. That's what happens in communist regimes. And this project that I'm working on, the Tales of Truth thing that I'm doing, I've been researching that kind of empire and what they do to their people when they have a whim of, ruling the world, right? We're going to rule the world. How do we do that? Well, let's treat humans as cattle. Let's
take them captive.
Right. So when I say pick one, anybody, and this is the line I draw, anybody on the planet who defends the actions of the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, anybody who defends those actions, they're picking China. Whether it's global corporations, whether it's other nations, whether it's media talking heads, they're choosing sides. They're picking evil over good. I'm not saying the United States is perfect. I'm not saying we haven't committed evil, but we are not committed to evil.
Not yet.
There's Mom's pessimism. But
that's not pessimism.
Realism? Hi, right. No, we're not going to get into eschatology here because there's all these implications about end times, or are we, witnessing, this global.
I'm not even referring to eschatology. It's a road we can't afford to go down. That's really all I'm saying.
Oh, right. Well, I am. Okay, boy, this is going to be controversial. I am happy about how this global pandemic unfolded
Because
because it revealed truth.
absolutely.
The lines are being drawn right now, and it's not because of my video forcing people to pick one. You better pick one. Like, if you are criticizing the leadership of the United States of America, you are picking communism, right? Anybody who's focused on what's going on here and, oh, he's caused this and they caused that, and don't don't blame China for this. It's our fault. There was a problem here. It's our fault. And it's like, anybody who's saying that is choosing evil. They're siding with a brutal communist dictatorship. Anybody who is, and the statistics are out, most Americans, at the most recent polling that I heard, is 72% of Americans have a negative view of China right now. And it's not the Chinese people, right? The Chinese people are the greatest victims of this. Those are the people getting locked into their apartment, like welded, their apartment doors welded closed, so they'll starve to death, right? We don't do that.
Right.
We don't do that in the USA, right? The communist dictatorship throws people into internment camps and cuts out their organs while they're still alive. Okay, we've talked about that in another segment. Those things happening in the world today, there is good and evil. Everybody believes it. They may not say they believe it, but everybody believes that evil exists and good exists. And if you side with China, the government ideology of the current regime, you're siding with evil. Period.
Did you know that today Bill Gates publicly came out, this is not fake news, publicly came out and announced his siding with the government of China.
Yikes.
Openly. It's there. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, I mean, okay, so here are some of my thoughts about why people side with China.
Money.
Well, certainly that's the biggest. Rewind to before this global pandemic. Just a few months before the pandemic, you had the NBA was going to play some. Every year they play some games in China because one of the biggest sponsors of the NBA is this huge shoe corporation, and they're based in China. And so and before that, prior to this, well, there was a coach of one of the basketball teams that made a statement siding with the Hong Kong protesters, right? So the Hong Kong protesters, Hong Kong used to be a province or a property of the United Kingdom, and then the deal was that Hong Kong would be handed back to China at a certain time, and that supposedly happened, but then the deal was that Hong Kong would get to maintain their democracy, their form of government. Even though they belong to China, they would still be a democracy. Well, how does that work? How does a totalitarian regime that wants to take over the world allow one of their properties to have a whole different worldview? So these conflicts in Hong Kong have been happening for about a year now, and so one of the NBA coaches sided with the protesters in Hong Kong, and then got shut down by the NBA. And so it was the NBA siding with China over democracy, basically. So all of that is now exposed. Now that this pandemic has happened, everybody can look back and go, oh, it's the money. It's about the money. So the NBA would side with the government that has concentration camps. They would side with a government that massacres religious minorities That's called genocide, right? A government that's actually arguably more racist than any other nation that's ever existed. Like, they are kicking African Americans out of their apartments today because they're seen as carriers of this virus or whatever. There's all kinds of that stuff happening right now. And the NBA would rather side with them because of the money. Well, that's not, there's no NBA anymore, right? What happened in this pandemic? All of that stuff ended. There is no NBA. There is no money. And so that's one tangent. Another tangent I want to go on is those who don't believe in God, right? That's a communist regime. They suppress every religion. Muslim, those are the ones in the Uyghur Muslims in the internment camps. There's another Falun Gong is another religious group that they suppress, and then Christians have been suppressed there forever. And if you're an atheist, anti-God, or you don't believe in God, you do believe in the state as the highest authority, right? You believe that the highest form of human intelligence is the nation state. And so the state becomes God. And the denigration or the degradation of the human value, right? They'll look at China's got the right idea. This is how society should prosper because, you have to force people to follow the rules in order to advance or whatever. I mean, communism has never worked, right? People say, "Oh, it's never worked because it's never been tried properly." It can't be tried properly. Communism says everybody should have equality, equal rights, and equal. There's a difference between equality of opportunity and equality of outcome, and so communism focuses on equality of outcome, which means everybody should have the same thing, or everybody should be exactly the same, which is an impossibility, especially for a government to try and legislate from the top down. Communism is an impossibility if you're trying to do it from a government point of view, because who runs the government? Some individual who gets power hungry, right, and thinks they have the right way and they can figure out how the world should be. Communism will never work. So for someone like Bill Gates, and I haven't read it yet, but for someone like that, it's certainly money, tech. I mean, I don't know what what they got on him, or if he's just an atheist and hates America that much and thinks China is the future. But that's fascinating. Do you have any final thoughts? Because I could go on and on. You get me on my soapbox.
No, I'm just being the good listener.
Well, let me close with this one thing. There's been for some people who have been paying attention to geopolitical maneuverings over the decades, some people believe that China's dominance is an inevitability, that China will rule the world and will dominate the world. There's a movie called Looper. I don't know if you watch many movies. So there's a movie called Looper with Bruce Willis and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Those are the two main actors. Basically, Joseph Gordon-Levitt is a young version of Bruce Willis. It's a time travel thing where Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, he's in the future, he's in the past, he's from the future. That's it. And his job is to go to the past and eliminate enemies of the corporation that he works for. So he works for this big corporation, and they send him into the past to kill their enemies before they're even born, or before they become their enemies or something. And so he ends up being sent back to kill himself, which is Bruce Willis.
I think I've heard of that movie.
Or he's sent to the future. I'm mixing up the time travel thing, which, but essentially he realizes he's supposed to kill himself. And I like the movie. It had a pretty good ending. I mean, I think it's one of those time travel movies that actually did kind of the right ending. They're very difficult to end. You know, it's interesting
Yeah.
sci-fi stuff. But the reason I'm mentioning this story here is the future in that movie, and that screenwriter, he was in China, and the China had dominated the world. It was like every, you know, it was, the future was the Chinese economy and the Chinese way of life,
Uh-huh.
because of, you know, what the screenwriter perceived, and a lot of people like him perceive as an inevitability, that China would rise and the United States would diminish and fall. I wholeheartedly disagree. This pandemic has sorted things out. This pandemic has drawn the lines, and people are going to side with China or side with the United States. Literally,
Yeah.
some people think a hot war is coming because of the South China Sea. China is claiming territories that they always believed were theirs. Like Taiwan isn't a nation. Taiwan is just, they consider Taiwan a part of China. And so some people think a hot war is coming. Whether a hot war comes or not, we've been at war with China for decades. We just now woke up to it. So you better pick sides of this war. Are you on the side of the Chinese, or are you on the side of the United States of America? Because China, through this technology that you're using, until this happened, they had free reign. They
Right.
they're around us everywhere. The communist regime owns all the technology in China. It's not privately owned businesses, it's state owned businesses. So anytime you do business with a Chinese corporation, if you allow Chinese corporations' technology into your home, you're allowing a communist government into your home. That's why these tech companies are banning certain types of speech, certain types of content. It's like they're beholden to their financiers, or their owners. All right, that's my soapbox. I'm going to step off of it right now. Well, you made the right choice, Mom. You picked the right side. I'm glad I convinced you. I brought you over. Just kidding. Love you, Mom.
Love you too.
Any final thoughts, or is that it?
Nope, I think that's it.
Oh, I got to dominate this one. All right. It's better that way, so that you don't get in trouble. Everybody can stay in love with you, and then they can hate me. That's good cop, bad cop here. All right. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.